The roar of engines fills the air, a symphony of power echoing through the streets of Monte Carlo. It's May 25th, 2008. The Monaco Grand Prix is in full swing, a dazzling spectacle of speed and luxury. But beneath the glamour, a chilling mystery is about to unfold. Meet Emily Carter, a vibrant 34-year-old sculptor with an infectious laugh and a heart as big as her personality. Known for her bold, colorful art pieces, Emily was a beacon of positivity. Her work was renowned for its celebration of life in all its forms. She was the beloved wife of Richard Carter, a shrewd yet charismatic CEO of a burgeoning tech company. Their love story, a whirlwind romance that defied the odds, was the stuff of fairy tales. Emily always felt slightly out of place in the high-stakes world of Formula One, yet she embraced it with her usual zest. Friends described her as a grounding force in Richard's high-pressure life. Despite their contrasts, they were inseparable, their bond seemingly unbreakable. On this particular weekend, the couple was attending the race with a group of Richard's business associates. It was supposed to be a weekend of networking and celebration, but as the final lap of the race approached, Emily vanished. In the days leading up to her disappearance, Emily had been her usual self, excited about attending the Grand Prix. She'd even posted a series of photos on her blog, capturing her unique perspective of the glamorous event. Her last entry, an image of a sunset over the marina, was captioned, "Finding Beauty in the Unexpected." The day of her disappearance, the couple had been seen laughing and mingling at a VIP event. By all accounts, Emily was in high spirits, but as the race concluded, Richard noticed her absence. At first, he assumed she had stepped away for a moment of solitude, something she often did to recharge. As minutes turned to hours, concern turned into panic. Richard's search through the crowded paddocks and bustling corridors yielded nothing. Emily was gone, as if she'd vanished into thin air. The initial investigation was clumsy at best. The local police, overwhelmed by the influx of tourists and the chaos of the race weekend, were slow to act. Richard, frantic and desperate, was left to navigate a labyrinth of bureaucracy. The clock ticked on, each second underscoring the gravity of Emily's absence. And then, just as hope seemed to fade, the phone rang at the Monte Carlo police station. A 911 call that would ignite a labyrinthine investigation, setting in motion a series of events that would unravel the truth behind Emily's disappearance. What secrets lay hidden in the shadows of this glittering city? Who would benefit from Emily's absence? As the pieces begin to fall into place, the mystery deepens, leaving a trail of questions and a desperate search for answers. Emily Johnson was not just Richard's wife, she was a vibrant force in her own right. Known affectionately as Emmy by those close to her, she was a well-respected advocate for body positivity and inclusivity, using her platform to inspire countless individuals. Her blog, Embrace Your Curve, had amassed a dedicated following, resonating with those who found strength in her authenticity and warmth. Born and raised in a small town in Ohio, Emily had always dreamed of a life beyond the confines of her hometown. Her journey took her through the bustling streets of New York City, where she met Richard at a charity gala. Their whirlwind romance was a testament to the serendipity of love, and they married in an intimate ceremony, surrounded by close friends and family. On the day of her disappearance, Emily was the embodiment of elegance and confidence, effortlessly mingling with the elite of the Formula One world. Her laughter was infectious, her presence magnetic. Yet beneath the surface, those closest to her knew she carried a burden of unease, a shadow that occasionally darkened her bright demeanor. As the race neared its climactic finish, Emily was last seen heading towards the private hospitality suite, a place she often retreated to for moments of quiet reflection. Witnesses later reported seeing her chatting animatedly with a mysterious figure, a man whose identity remained frustratingly elusive in the days that followed. The 911 call that came in was both a beacon of hope and a harbinger of dread. A hotel staff member on a routine round had discovered something unsettling. A woman's scarf, delicate and distinctly Emily's, caught on a fence near the marina. It was a small clue, yet it was enough to reignite the urgency of the search. The call detailed a scene that raised more questions than it answered. The scarf, vibrant in its hues, was the same one Emily had been wearing that day, a gift from Richard on their first anniversary. Yet there was no sign of struggle, no indication of where she might have gone next. The marina, bustling with activity, offered little in terms of surveillance. Its cameras focused on the opulence of the yachts rather than the paths less traveled. As Richard arrived at the scene, his mind raced with possibilities. Could Emily have left of her own accord? Was she taken against her will? The mere thought sent shivers down his spine. The police, finally galvanized by the discovery, began a more thorough investigation, retracing Emily's steps with a fine-toothed comb. But even as the search intensified, whispers of doubt began to circulate. Some questioned the stability of Emily and Richard's marriage, citing the pressures of public life and the constant scrutiny they faced. Others speculated about the mysterious figure Emily had been seen with, weaving tales of intrigue and betrayal. Amidst the swirl of rumors and half-truths, Richard clung to the hope that Emily would be found safe. Yet as night fell over Monaco, the city glittering against the inky backdrop of the Mediterranean, one question loomed larger than the rest. What had really happened to Emily Johnson? The first 48 hours in any missing person case are critical, yet often chaotic. As dawn broke over the picturesque Monaco skyline, the police found themselves navigating a maze of speculation and scant evidence. The discovery of Emily's scarf had injected a sense of urgency into the investigation, but it also highlighted the enormity of the task ahead. The initial police response was swift. Perimeters were established, and officers were dispatched to comb the marina and its surrounding areas. Richard, still reeling from the events of the previous evening, found himself besieged by questions from law enforcement. Every detail, no matter how inconsequential it seemed, was scrutinized. A detective, grizzled and methodical, led the interrogation, his voice steady amidst the swirling uncertainty. "Mr. Johnson, can you recall any recent changes in Emily's behavior? Anything out of the ordinary?" Richard, his mind clouded by worry and fatigue, struggled to articulate. She seemed distracted lately, but with everything going on, the race, the media, it was nothing unusual. As Richard spoke, the detective sifted through the fragments of his statements, searching for threads to pull. Meanwhile, across town, Emily's family had been notified. Her sister Sarah caught the earliest flight, her heart a tumult of fear and determination. Upon her arrival, Sarah's presence added another layer to the unfolding drama. She immediately demanded answers, her voice a mix of anguish and resolve. How could she just vanish? This isn't like her. We need to do more. The police, however, were already encountering obstacles. Key witnesses, including the hotel staff and marina workers, offered inconsistent accounts. Some claimed they saw Emily leave the hotel alone, while others swore she was in the company of the enigmatic figure captured in the CCTV footage. One witness, a yacht owner, recounted seeing a woman matching Emily's description boarding a vessel late into the night. Yet when pressed for details, his story faltered, his certainty dissolving under scrutiny. Amid this confusion, a critical mistake emerged. The police, overwhelmed by the sheer scale of the event weekend, failed to secure all potential exit points from the marina promptly. By the time they did, any trace of Emily or her possible abductor had likely vanished into the Mediterranean ether. As the hours ticked by, the investigation stalled. Each lead seemed to evaporate as quickly as it appeared, leaving a trail of frustration and missed opportunities. The media, hungry for a sensational story, began to circle, their headlines rife with speculation and conjecture. Yet, beneath the noise, Richard and Sarah remained resolute. They refused to be sidelined, determined to find Emily or at least uncover the truth of her disappearance. But as the sun set on the second day, a chilling thought began to take hold, a realization that whatever had happened to Emily was not just a random act of chaos, but potentially something far more sinister and calculated. The question lingered, ominous and unanswered. Who had the motive, the means, and the opportunity to make Emily vanish without a trace? As the sun dipped below the horizon on that second day, casting long shadows across the bustling city, the urgency in the police station was palpable. Inside, Sarah paced the floor, her mind racing with 100 possibilities. Richard sat nearby, his face a mask of controlled panic as he clutched his phone, hoping for any news of Emily. The lead investigator, Detective Miller, finally emerged from his office, his expression grave. "We've set up a dedicated hotline for any information," he announced. "But I must be honest, the first 48 hours are crucial, and we're already behind." Sarah's eyes burned with a fierce determination. "Then let's not waste another second. What about the security footage from the marina? The CCTV?" "We're reviewing it," Miller assured, though the truth was more complex. The footage was grainy, and the sheer volume was overwhelming, requiring painstaking attention that they couldn't afford to spare just yet. Meanwhile, outside the station, the media frenzy continued to escalate, each outlet vying for the latest scoop. Reporters clamored for statements, their questions sharp and relentless, feeding the growing public curiosity and concern. Inside, a young officer approached Miller, his voice uncertain. "Sir, there's a witness who claims they saw someone fitting Emily's description being hurried into a car near the hotel, but the details are unclear." Miller nodded, frustration etching deeper lines into his forehead. "Get a sketch artist. We need every detail, no matter how small." But even as they pursued this new lead, another critical error unfolded. The initial search of the couple's hotel room had been cursory at best. Crucial forensic opportunities were missed, overlooked in the chaotic rush to find Emily. It wasn't until Sarah, desperate to feel closer to her sister, returned to the room that something caught her eye. A small, shimmering earring nestled beneath the bed. Emily's favorite pair. Sarah's voice trembled with a mix of hope and dread as she showed it to Miller. "This is Emily's. She never went anywhere without these. We need to look again." Her insistence prompted a more thorough examination of the room, but time was slipping away, and with each passing hour, the trail grew colder. As night fell once more, Richard and Sarah found themselves alone, their thoughts haunted by uncertainty. A quiet resolve settled between them, a promise unspoken but deeply felt. They would not stop until they brought Emily home. The clock continued to tick, a relentless reminder of how swiftly moments could turn into days, and how easily a life could be swept away. But amid the darkness, a glimmer of hope appeared, a call to the hotline, claiming knowledge of a mysterious figure seen loitering near the marina, someone who might hold the key to Emily's whereabouts. With this new lead, a sense of urgency ignited within the investigation. But the question loomed larger than ever. Would it be enough to unravel the mystery before it was too late? The call from the hotline sent a ripple of anticipation through the investigation team. Miller gathered his officers, determination lacing his words. "We need to act on this immediately. The marina isn't far, let's move." The marina was bathed in the soft glow of early morning light, casting long shadows over the boats, gently swaying in the water. Officers fanned out, speaking to anyone who might have been there during the crucial hours of Emily's disappearance. Most had seen nothing unusual, but one old fisherman, his eyes clouded yet keen with experience, spoke up. "I saw a man, tall and in a hurry, looking over his shoulder like he was expecting someone. He vanished down the docks, but what struck me was the car he drove off in, a dark sedan with tinted windows." Miller scribbled down the details, his mind racing. A dark sedan. It was too vague, yet it was something. "Did you see the license plate?" he asked, hopeful. The fisherman shook his head, apologetic. "I'm sorry, it was too dark." Back at the station, the tension was palpable. Sarah and Richard sat in the waiting area, their nerves frayed. Sarah clung to the earring, a tangible connection to her sister that both comforted and tormented her. Richard, usually composed, appeared lost in thought, his mind grappling with countless possibilities. Meanwhile, the initial investigation continued to unravel. In their haste, vital evidence had been contaminated or overlooked entirely. The hotel security footage, which could have provided crucial insights, was discovered to have been erased due to a technical mishap. Valuable time slipped away as IT specialists worked to recover the lost data, but the clock was relentless. As frustration mounted, a new lead emerged, one that had been buried beneath the avalanche of calls and tips. A local shop owner reported seeing a woman matching Emily's description entering his store the day before she vanished, accompanied by a man who wasn't her husband. The shopkeeper recalled a heated exchange between them. Though he couldn't discern the subject of the argument, Miller leaned forward, intrigued. "Do you remember anything else about this man?" The shopkeeper pondered, his brow furrowed. He was well-dressed, looked like he belonged in the corporate world. But there was something about his eyes it cold, like he was hiding something. The description sent a shiver through the room. Who was this man? And what was his connection to Emily? Even as these new threads were pulled, the investigation was marred by procedural errors. The crime scene had been compromised, and witness statements were inconsistent, muddled by the chaos of the high-profile event. As night descended again, bringing with it an oppressive sense of urgency, Miller gathered his team. "We need to tighten our focus. Cross-reference the description of the man from the store with attendees at the F1 event. We must find a link." The pressure was mounting, every second feeling like a weight on their shoulders. Yet amid the confusion and setbacks, a determination took root within the group, a shared resolve to uncover the truth for Emily and her family. But as the team dispersed to chase these new leads, a chilling thought haunted them all. Were they already too late? The night was thick with tension as Miller's team worked tirelessly, scouring through endless lists of attendees, corporate guests, and local dignitaries who had graced the Formula One weekend. The description of the man from the shop was vague, but they clung to it as their only thread of hope. Days bled into nights, and the weight of the investigation bore heavily upon them. The media frenzy around Emily's disappearance had reached a fever pitch, with news outlets airing speculative theories that only muddied the waters further. Miller knew that public pressure could be both a motivator and a hindrance. In the community, whispers and rumors spread like wildfire. Some speculated that Emily had run away, unable to cope with the high expectations of her new life. Others whispered of marital discord, citing the CEO's notorious temper and demanding nature. The gossip was relentless, and every new piece of hearsay was a potential distraction. Then came the first likely suspects, drawn from these swirling rumors. A former employee of the CEO, recently fired under contentious circumstances, became the focus of intense scrutiny. His departure had been bitter, and his grievances against the company were well known. He fit the bill of someone who might harbor resentment enough to harm Emily. Interviews with the man, however, yielded little. He was cooperative, offering a solid alibi and expressing shock at even being considered a suspect. Still, the press latched onto this narrative, painting him as a disgruntled ex-employee with a vendetta. Miller felt the investigation slipping through his fingers, the focus shifting away from the heart of the matter. As the weeks dragged on, the case began to grow cold. Leads dried up, and witnesses became harder to track down. The shopkeeper's description, once a beacon of hope, now seemed like a fading memory, an unreliable testament in the face of dwindling evidence. The breakthrough they needed seemed as elusive as ever. Emily's family, devastated by her absence, clung desperately to the hope of her return. They made public pleas, their voices raw with anguish, urging anyone with information to come forward. Yet even these heartfelt appeals seemed to fall on deaf ears. In a moment of introspection, Miller gathered his team once more. "We can't let this go cold," he urged, his voice a mix of determination and frustration. "There's something we're missing, something in plain sight that we've overlooked." The challenge was clear, to sift through the chaos, to find that overlooked detail, that single piece of evidence that could reignite the investigation. But as the sands of time slipped through their fingers, they couldn't shake the feeling that the real answer lay just out of reach. And then, just as the team was on the verge of exhaustion, an unexpected call came through, a tip from someone claiming to have seen Emily after the day she disappeared. The voice on the other end was hesitant, yet certain, and it offered a flicker of hope in the darkness. Who was this new witness? And could their information change the course of the investigation? As the team prepared to follow this new lead, the question loomed. Would this be the key to finding Emily, or just another dead end in a case that was rapidly slipping away? The call had come in from a payphone, an anomaly in an age when mobile devices ruled. The voice was gravelly, tinged with the weight of years and possibly more than a little scotch. The caller claimed to have seen Emily at a small diner on the outskirts of the city a week after her disappearance. He spoke of a woman fitting her description, sitting alone, lost in thought, before hurriedly leaving when a man approached her. The team assembled quickly, the adrenaline of this new lead momentarily cutting through their fatigue. Miller instructed his detectives to canvass the diner and surrounding areas, hoping to find someone who could corroborate the story or, better yet, remember more details about the mysterious man. In the ensuing days, the streets buzzed with speculation. Emily's disappearance was now fodder for the rumor mill, each theory more outlandish than the last. A disgruntled fan, a jealous rival, even whispers of a secret life led by Emily far from the public eye. These tales were tantalizing, but they clouded the truth, burying it beneath layers of intrigue and hearsay. Frustration mounted as days turned into weeks. The diner patrons, questioned and re-questioned, could offer little more than vague recollections. Yes, there might have been a woman like Emily, but nothing concrete. And the man? A shadowy figure in a sea of anonymity, a description so generic it could fit half the city. Miller, staring at the board cluttered with notes and photos, felt the weight of expectation pressing down on him. The calls from Emily's family grew more desperate, their voices cracking under the strain of not knowing. "Find her," they pleaded, their pain a constant reminder of the stakes involved. The case, once a vibrant tapestry of leads and possibilities, was unraveling into a cold, grey mass of uncertainty. Even the media, once relentless in their pursuit of the story, had moved on, their attention captured by fresh headlines and new scandals. As Miller sat in his office one late night, the silence was shattered by a call from the lab. Preliminary tests on a piece of jewelry found near the diner had come back inconclusive, yet there was something. A trace of residue, something not quite right, that warranted further investigation. Miller knew this was not the breakthrough they needed, but it was a flicker of hope. He instructed the lab to expedite the analysis, clinging to the possibility that this small detail, overlooked by all, might be the thread that would lead them to Emily. The question remained hanging heavily in the air. Was this the turning point, or just another false dawn in the long, dark night of Emily's disappearance? As the team prepared to delve deeper, the echoes of the rumors and the pressure of time weighed on them. Each moment without resolution, another step towards a case gone cold. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the city, the investigation's momentum slowed to a crawl. The small team, once energized by the prospect of a swift resolution, was now entrenched in a mire of uncertainty and doubt. The rumors within the community had begun to take on a life of their own, swirling like an insidious fog. Whispers in the local bars and shops suggested an affair, hinting at a scandalous liaison between Emily and a prominent figure from the Formula One world. Some said it was a driver, others speculated about a member of a rival team. Each version more salacious than the last, yet none providing the concrete lead Miller so desperately needed. The first suspects emerged from this tangled web of gossip, a pair of local men with checkered pasts. One, a mechanic with a history of petty theft. The other, a bartender known for his quick temper and frequent altercations. Their names had surfaced in a conversation overheard at a neighborhood pub, where patrons speculated that perhaps these men had seen an opportunity amidst the chaos of the race weekend. Interrogations followed, painstaking yet ultimately fruitless. The mechanic, defensive and surly, denied ever having crossed paths with Emily. His alibi checked out, a night spent repairing a faulty gearbox for a client. The bartender, meanwhile, seemed genuinely perplexed by the accusations, his timeline corroborated by multiple witnesses who placed him at his post during the critical hours. Despite these dead ends, the pressure from above was mounting. The media had moved on, but Emily's family had not. Their calls grew more frequent, their desperation palpable. "Is there anything?" they implored, hope clinging to their voices like a lifeline. Miller, exhausted yet resolute, found himself at a crossroads. The case, once vibrant with possibility, was teetering on the brink of going cold. He knew they needed a breakthrough, something to shatter the inertia that gripped them. But what? The lab results, the lone beacon of hope, were still pending. And as days turned to weeks, the weight of expectation pressed relentlessly down on Miller and his team. Each new lead dissolved into a frustrating dead end, each rumor a reminder of their failure to find Emily. Yet in the depths of this uncertainty, Miller held on to a sliver of optimism. The trace residue on the jewelry, though inconclusive, could not be ignored. He pressed the lab for answers, urging them to leave no stone unturned. In the meantime, the community's suspicions grew, painting a portrait of Emily that seemed at odds with the woman her family knew. A socialite, a woman with secrets, they said. But was this the truth, or merely the city's collective imagination, filling the void left by her absence? The clock continued its relentless march forward, each tick echoing the chilling possibility that Emily might never be found. Yet as the team regrouped, determined to forge ahead, a question lingered at the forefront of Miller's mind. Was there something, or someone, they had overlooked? The years crept by, a slow and torturous march for Emily's family. Her mother, once vibrant and full of life, had aged visibly, lines of worry etching deeper with each passing day. Her father, a man of few words, had grown quieter still, his silence a testament to the weight he carried. They clung to each other, finding solace in shared grief, yet each night ended with the same haunting question: where was Emily? The private investigator they hired, a former detective with a reputation for tenacity, dove into the case with fervor. His methods, unconventional at times, brought them a glimmer of hope. He retraced Emily's last known steps, scrutinized her social circle, and sifted through mountains of digital footprints. But even his determination couldn't unravel the mystery. The trail had grown cold, the silence around Emily's disappearance deafening. In the community, the initial flurry of interest had waned. The city, bustling with the rhythm of daily life, moved forward. New events, new scandals and new faces filled the void left by Emily's absence. Yet a shadow lingered. Those who remembered whispered her name in hushed tones, the story of the CEO's plus-size bride who vanished still a ghostly presence at gatherings. Miller, now a retired detective, often found himself lost in thought, replaying every detail of the case in his mind. He kept a small box of case files in his home office, a reminder of unfinished business. Despite the official closure, he couldn't shake the feeling that he had missed something, a thread left untugged. His instincts, honed over years on the force, whispered that the truth was still out there, waiting to be uncovered. Emily's younger sister, now a college graduate, took up the mantle of the family's quest for answers. She was relentless, organizing vigils and maintaining a social media campaign to keep Emily's story alive. Her voice, clear and determined, became a beacon of hope for those who had not forgotten. Every post, every shared memory, was a plea for justice, a reminder that Emily was more than just a headline. Amidst this backdrop of quiet determination and relentless advocacy, a breakthrough began to take shape. The investigator, following a hunch, revisited the trace residue found on Emily's jewelry. Advances in forensic technology offered new possibilities, techniques that hadn't been available in 2008. He partnered with a cutting-edge lab, hoping that this time the results would yield something substantial. Days turned into weeks as they awaited the findings. The anticipation was a double-edged sword, each day a pendulum swinging between hope and despair. And then the call came, a result so unexpected it set the entire investigation on a new trajectory. The residue, once a mere footnote in the case, now held the key to revealing the killer hiding in plain sight. But as the family gathered to hear the news, one question loomed larger than ever before. Would this revelation lead them to Emily, or was it just another cruel twist in their unending search for closure? As the family sat in the dimly lit room, the air thick with anticipation, the investigator began to speak. His voice was steady, yet tinged with a cautious optimism that hadn't been present before. The residue, he explained, was a specific type of chemical compound commonly found in industrial environments. It was rare, not something typically encountered in everyday life. This compound, when examined with the latest technology, revealed a unique signature, a trace element that could be linked to a very specific location. For Emily's family, the revelation was both a relief and a torment. The possibility of finally uncovering the truth was tantalizing, yet the fear of another dead end loomed large. The investigator paused, allowing the weight of his words to sink in. He mentioned a warehouse on the outskirts of the city, an old facility that had recently been sold and repurposed. This place, once a hub of industrial activity, had been overlooked in the original investigation. The evidence suggested that Emily had been there. Perhaps even her final moments were tied to this location. The family exchanged glances, a mixture of hope and desperation etched on their faces. It was a lead, the first real one in years. Emily's sister clutched her mother's hand, silently vowing to follow this new path wherever it might lead. Meanwhile, the community, once vibrant with the collective search for Emily, had slowly returned to the rhythm of everyday life. Her disappearance had become an unsolved mystery, a cautionary tale whispered in hushed tones. Candlelight vigils turned into occasional memorials as the years stretched on and the case faded into a distant memory for most. But for those who loved her, time did nothing to dull the pain. Emily's parents, aging and weary, focused their remaining energy on supporting their younger daughter's efforts. They had learned to navigate the world with the constant ache of her absence, each milestone in their lives marked by her missing presence. Miller, despite being retired, found himself drawn back into the orbit of the investigation. The news of the residue's significance reignited his determination. He sought out the investigator, offering his insights and experience. Together, they began to piece together a plan to search the warehouse, hoping to uncover the secrets it might hold. As the investigation prepared to move forward, Emily's sister made a heartfelt plea to the public. Her voice, steady and resolute, resonated across social media and news outlets. She called for anyone with information about the warehouse, no matter how insignificant it seemed, to come forward. Her words were a rallying cry, a reminder that Emily was not forgotten. Yet, beneath the surface, a new tension brewed. The revelation of the residue's origins hinted at something deeper, a conspiracy perhaps, or a deliberate attempt to mislead the investigation. The family and investigators alike were left to wonder, had someone been orchestrating a cover-up all along? And if so, how far did it reach? As the pieces of the puzzle slowly began to align, the stage was set for a revelation that could either bring closure or unravel everything they thought they knew. The clock was ticking, and the truth buried for so long was finally within reach. But would they be prepared for what they might find? The years that followed Emily's disappearance were marked by an agonizing silence. For her family, each passing day was an extension of their grief, a reminder of the unanswered questions that hung over them like a dark cloud. Emily's parents, now in the twilight of their lives, clung to hope with the tenacity of those who have nothing left to lose. Their remaining daughter, driven by an unyielding desire for justice, became the torchbearer of the family's search for truth. In the quiet moments, Emily's sister often found herself sifting through old photos and letters, seeking solace in memories. She remembered Emily's laughter, her unyielding spirit, and the way she could brighten a room simply by being in it. These recollections were both a comfort and a torment, as they underscored the void her absence had created. The community, once galvanized by Emily's story, slowly moved on. New stories filled the headlines, and the vibrancy of life continued, indifferent to the stillness left behind. Yet, within Emily's family and a small circle of loyal friends, the silence was deafening. They refused to let her memory fade, organizing annual events to keep her story alive, each gathering a bittersweet reminder of what was lost. As the public's interest waned, the police file on Emily's case gathered dust, relegated to the cold case archives. But for Emily's sister, resignation was not an option. She embarked on a private investigation, using her savings to hire a team of specialists who meticulously reviewed every detail the authorities had missed or overlooked. The family's year-long investigation was painstaking, a labor of love and desperation. They revisited the day of Emily's disappearance, reconstructing timelines and re-interviewing witnesses whose memories had grown hazy with time. It was a journey fraught with frustration and heartache, yet they pressed on, driven by the hope that the truth was still out there, waiting to be uncovered. Miller, the retired detective, became a valuable ally in their quest. His experience and connections opened doors that might have otherwise remained closed. He became a frequent visitor at Emily's parents' home, his presence a reminder that they were not alone in their search. Together they formed an unlikely partnership, a blend of familial determination and seasoned investigative expertise. Years turned into a decade, and Emily's case became a ghost story, a legend whispered among locals. The warehouse, once a bustling hub of activity, stood abandoned, its secrets locked away behind rusted doors and shattered windows. It loomed in the backdrop of their lives, a silent witness to the events that had unfolded. Then one day a call came that changed everything. A former employee of the warehouse, now living across the country, had seen Emily's sister's plea on social media. He had information, he said, about the warehouse's operations and the people who frequented it around the time of Emily's disappearance. As the family prepared to meet this new witness, a sense of cautious optimism took hold. Could this be the breakthrough they had been waiting for? Could this man hold the key to unraveling the mystery that had eluded them for so long? The air was thick with anticipation, the possibility of finally piercing through the years of silence, electrifying their resolve. Yet the question loomed large. Would this lead bring them closer to Emily, or would it reveal a truth darker than they could have ever imagined? The stage was set once more, and the clock, silent for years, began to tick with renewed urgency. The call had injected a newfound energy into the weary hearts of Emily's family. They gathered around the dining room table, poring over old notes and photographs, as if trying to will the pieces of the past into a coherent picture. Miller, with his usual calm demeanor, laid out a plan for the upcoming meeting, emphasizing the need for caution and thoroughness in their questions. The days until the meeting stretched like an eternity, each tick of the clock a reminder of the years lost and the pain endured. Emily's mother often found herself staring out the window, eyes scanning the horizon as if Emily might suddenly appear, walking up the driveway with her familiar smile. Her father, once a man of few words, now spent hours in quiet contemplation, his mind a storm of what-ifs and regrets. In the small town, the buzz of Emily's case had long since quieted. People went about their lives, the mystery of her disappearance relegated to the back of their minds. New families had moved in, unaware of the tragedy that had once gripped their community. The warehouse, still standing like a monument to the past, was often the subject of ghost stories told by teenagers on daring nights, its darkened windows offering no glimpses of the secrets inside. But for Emily's family, time had not dulled the edge of their loss. They had become their own investigators, following leads that often led to dead ends, hiring private detectives who turned up nothing more than old rumors. Still, they persisted. Emily's sister, now grown with children of her own, kept her siblings' memory alive through stories and photo albums, ensuring that Emily was still a presence in their lives. The day of the meeting finally arrived. The former employee had agreed to meet at a coffee shop a few towns over, a neutral ground where they could speak freely. As they drove to the meeting, a heavy silence filled the car, each of them lost in their thoughts, hearts pounding with a mixture of hope and fear. Upon arrival, they spotted him, a man in his late 50s with lines of worry etched across his face. He greeted them with a nervous nod, looking as if he carried the weight of the world on his shoulders. As they settled into their seats, the din of the coffee shop faded into the background, their focus entirely on the man who might hold the answers they had sought for so long. He began to speak, his voice trembling slightly as he recounted those days in 2008. The warehouse, he explained, had been more than just a place of business. It was a hub of illicit activities, a secret known to few, but enough to cast a shadow over its operations. He spoke of late-night meetings, of people who came and went without a trace, and of whispers that spoke of debts and threats. Then he paused, his gaze meeting theirs with a somber intensity. There was something else, he said, a night he couldn't forget. A night when he saw a woman matching Emily's description, arguing with a man in the shadows behind the warehouse. His account was vivid, the memory etched into his mind like a scar. The man, he suspected, was someone of influence, someone who had the power to make people disappear. As he finished, the room seemed to hold its breath, the significance of his words settling in like a fog. Here was a piece of the puzzle they had longed for, a glimpse into the darkness that had swallowed Emily whole. Yet with this revelation came a chilling realization. Their journey was far from over. The path ahead was fraught with danger, and the truth they sought was laced with peril. The family exchanged glances, a silent agreement passing between them. They would not stop now, not when they were so close. But as they left the coffee shop, a question lingered in the air, unspoken but deeply felt. Was the truth they sought worth the risk they were about to take? The clock continued to tick, each second drawing them closer to a confrontation with the past, and a future that held both hope and fear. As the family stepped out into the cool evening air, a new sense of determination coursed through them. The city lights flickered like stars, casting long shadows that mirrored their own tangled emotions. They knew they had to proceed carefully, each step calculated, each move scrutinized. A few days later, in a quiet office overlooking the bustling city streets, a new chapter began to unfold. Detective Laura Hayes, a seasoned investigator with a reputation for her tenacity and sharp intuition, had just been assigned to the cold case unit. Emily's disappearance was the first file she pulled from the stack, the details intriguing her immediately. She had heard whispers of this case, the rumors and theories that had swirled around it for over a decade. Her instincts told her there was something here, something that had been overlooked or buried. Determined to breathe new life into the investigation, Hayes decided to leverage the latest advancements in forensic technology, genetic genealogy. This groundbreaking technique had recently solved decades-old mysteries, and she hoped it would do the same for Emily. The old evidence, meticulously preserved but forgotten, would be her starting point. Days turned into weeks as the evidence was re-examined, every fiber and trace reanalyzed with modern precision. Hayes found herself captivated by Emily's story, the vibrant, joyful woman whose life had been abruptly silenced. As she delved deeper, the pieces began to align, revealing connections that had been invisible to the naked eye. Then, one afternoon, a breakthrough. A partial DNA profile, extracted from a hair found on a garment recovered near the warehouse, had yielded a match. It was distant, but it was something. A thread leading to a long-lost relative of a man whose path had once crossed Emily's. The man, now deceased, had a history of violence and a past interwoven with the city's underbelly. Hayes felt a thrill of anticipation. The match was tenuous but significant, suggesting a possible link to the shadowy figure described in the witness account. It was a lead, a glimmer of hope that had been absent for so long. She reached out to the family, her voice steady but tinged with urgency as she relayed the news. There was a renewed energy in their response, a flicker of hope reignited. For the first time in years, they felt the tide turning in their favor. The detective knew they were on the brink of something significant. Yet with this new knowledge came the haunting reminder of the risks involved. The world they were delving into was treacherous, the people they were about to confront dangerous. But the truth, elusive and buried for so long, was finally within reach. As the days unfolded, Hayes worked tirelessly, piecing together the fragments of Emily's last days. Each step brought new revelations, each discovery a testament to the power of persistence and innovation. But as they moved closer to the truth, the shadows loomed larger, and the stakes grew ever higher. Would the answers they sought bring closure? Or would they uncover a darkness greater than they had ever imagined? The clock continued to tick, each moment drawing them closer to a resolution that promised both relief and revelation. The air was thick with anticipation as the investigative team gathered in the small, dimly lit room that had become their nerve center. Maps and photographs adorned the walls, a visual testament to the years of tireless effort that had led them to this point. Hayes stood at the center, her eyes fixed on the screen displaying the new forensic data. It was time to bring in fresh eyes, someone with a keen sense for untangling the most complex of webs. Enter Detective Jameson, a seasoned investigator known for his unyielding pursuit of justice. His arrival brought a renewed sense of vigor to the case. With a reputation for solving cold cases that had long baffled his peers, Jameson had a knack for seeing connections others missed. His approach was meticulous, almost surgical in its precision, and his presence commanded respect. He studied the documents, his brow furrowed in concentration. The partial DNA match, though distant, held potential. It was a whisper of the past, a whisper that could be transformed into a roar with the right approach. Jameson proposed the use of genetic genealogy, a cutting-edge tool that had recently gained traction in the world of forensic science. By building a family tree from the DNA match, they could potentially identify relatives, narrowing down the list of suspects with unprecedented accuracy. The team worked tirelessly, cross-referencing databases and scouring ancestral records. Days stretched into nights, the office abuzz with the hum of computers and the low murmur of determined voices. Each piece of information was a brushstroke on a canvas, painting a picture of connections that had been invisible for years. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the room, a breakthrough occurred. A branch on the family tree led them to a name, an individual who had slipped through the cracks during the initial investigation. A man whose past intersected with the city's darker corners, whose presence at the Formula One event had been overlooked. He was a shadow, a spectre who had evaded notice until now. Jameson leaned back, a satisfied smile playing at the corners of his mouth. The lead was promising, but it was crucial to proceed with caution. The man they sought was elusive, his life shrouded in mystery and whispers. The next step was clear. They needed to gather more evidence, a definitive link that would bind him to Emily's disappearance. As the team prepared to delve deeper, a phone rang, shattering the silence. The voice on the other end was shaky, filled with a mix of fear and urgency. A witness, long silent, had come forward with new information. The caller spoke of a confession, whispered in the dead of night by a man on his deathbed, a man haunted by the secrets he carried to his grave. The revelation sent ripples through the team, a jolt of adrenaline that propelled them forward. The pieces were aligning, the shadows receding as the light of truth began to break through. But with each step forward, the question lingered. Would they find resolution, or uncover a darkness that threatened to consume them all? As the clock ticked on, the team braced themselves for the next chapter in their investigation, the path ahead fraught with danger and discovery. The truth was within reach, but so too were the shadows that had kept it hidden for so long. The room was thick with anticipation as the team absorbed the gravity of the phone call. Jameson, ever the pragmatist, knew this was the moment to strike. They needed to corroborate the whispered confession with hard evidence, and time was of the essence. As the team mobilized, another unexpected development unfolded. An email pinged into Jameson's inbox, its subject line stark and unassuming. New technology, old evidence. Intrigued, he opened it to find a message from Dr. Lillian Reyes, a leading expert in forensic genetics. She had been following the case from afar, captivated by its complexity and the human stories intertwined within it. Dr. Reyes proposed a cutting-edge approach. Genetic genealogy, a burgeoning field that had recently cracked cases thought unsolvable. She offered her expertise to re-examine the DNA evidence collected at the scene. A single hair, found in the back seat of a car reported stolen the night of Emily's disappearance. An artifact dismissed as irrelevant in 2008, deemed too contaminated and inconclusive. Jameson wasted no time. He called Dr. Reyes, her voice steady and confident. She explained how DNA profiles could be compared against vast online databases, potentially identifying familial connections that had eluded investigators for years. The science was revolutionary, and with her help, they could turn a cold trail into a blazing path. Within days, Dr. Reyes and her team had set up a mobile lab, the atmosphere buzzing with the hum of equipment and quiet determination. As they worked, Jameson reflected on how far they had come, how close they were to unearthing the truth. Meanwhile, the team pursued the lead from the deathbed confession. They tracked down the man's family, who confirmed his dying words. He had spoken of a clandestine meeting at a hotel near the Formula One circuit, a meeting that had spiraled into an unforeseen and tragic conclusion. The pieces were fitting together, but there was a sense that something crucial was still missing. Then the breakthrough. Dr. Reyes's analysis pinpointed a relative, a distant cousin of the shadowy figure from their family tree. The name was unfamiliar to the team, but significant in the realm of forensic genealogy. This connection was the key they needed, the definitive link binding the man to Emily's disappearance. The team was electrified. This new lead, coupled with the confession, gave them the momentum they desperately needed. Yet, as they prepared to confront the man in question, a gnawing fear gripped them. What if he slipped through their fingers once again? As the investigation hurtled forward, the specter of the past loomed large, casting a long shadow over their every move. They were closer than ever before. But with each step toward the truth, the stakes grew higher and the shadows more menacing. Would they finally unravel the mystery that had haunted them for over a decade, or would the darkness swallow them whole? The answer lay just beyond the horizon, waiting to be uncovered. The air in the makeshift lab was thick with anticipation. Jameson stood back, watching as Dr. Reyes zoomed in on the digital family tree projected on the wall. The lines and names intertwined, a complex web of history and secrets. The distant cousin they'd identified, a man named Gordon Ellis, was their strongest lead yet. Dr. Reyes explained the process, her voice steady and calm. The genealogy had revealed an unexpected connection, an ancestral thread that linked Gordon Ellis to the man from the deathbed confession. It was an astonishing revelation, one that had eluded them for years. Jameson felt a surge of urgency. We need to find him. We can't let this slip through our fingers. The team set to work, dividing tasks with military precision. Some dug into public records, others scoured social media, piecing together a picture of Ellis's life. Every detail, no matter how small, was scrutinized for significance. As the hours passed, they discovered Ellis had lived a quiet, unassuming life. A retired engineer, he had a penchant for vintage cars and was a regular at local classic car shows. But beneath the surface, there were whispers of a darker side. Old police reports surfaced, hinting at a history of violence, charges that had been dropped, accusations that had never quite stuck. Jameson leaned over the table, his eyes scanning the data. This is it. He's been hiding in plain sight all these years. The team worked tirelessly, driven by the hope of finally bringing closure to Emily's family. They knew the window of opportunity was narrow. If Ellis caught wind of their investigation, he could vanish, taking the truth with him. Meanwhile, Dr. Reyes was deep in conversation with a team member who had unearthed footage from the Formula One weekend. Grainy and indistinct, the video showed Ellis in the background, a shadowy figure at the periphery of the event. It was a tenuous connection, but enough to warrant further scrutiny. Jameson felt the weight of the years pressing down on him, the frustration of dead ends and false leads, the relentless pursuit of justice. This time, he vowed, they would not falter. Then a breakthrough. A forgotten witness, a hotel employee, came forward. They remembered Ellis. He had been a guest that weekend, a regular at the bar where Emily was last seen. The employee's account was vivid, their memory sharp. Ellis had been agitated, nervous, and most tellingly, he had been seen leaving with Emily on the night she disappeared. The team was electrified. This was the confirmation they needed, the missing piece of the puzzle. They were closing in, and the truth was within reach. Jameson felt a sense of vindication, tempered by the knowledge that the battle was not yet won. They had the evidence, the witnesses, the science. Now they needed to act swiftly, to confront Ellis before he slipped away. But even as they prepared to make their move, a shadow of doubt lingered. Would Ellis confess, or would he remain silent, taking his secrets to the grave? The answer was tantalizingly close, just beyond their grasp. As the team gathered their resources, the tension in the room was palpable. The stakes had never been higher and the outcome was uncertain. But they were ready, determined to see justice served at last. The clock was ticking, and the moment of truth was at hand. Would they succeed, or would the darkness claim another victory? The answer lay ahead, waiting to be uncovered in the most unexpected of ways. As the dim light of dawn seeped through the blinds, the team convened in the cramped, cluttered office that had become their war room. The air was thick with anticipation, every breath a reminder of the task at hand. Jameson, standing at the helm, reviewed the details once more. Every thread of information meticulously laid out before them. The forgotten witness had breathed new life into the investigation, and now the team was armed with more than just hope. They had a name, a face and a timeline that could finally unravel the mystery shrouding Emily's disappearance. Jameson knew that time was of the essence. Ellis was a ghost, slipping through the cracks for years, and any delay could risk losing him again. They needed more than just the witness's account. They needed irrefutable evidence, something that would compel Ellis to confront the truth. While the team prepared to track Ellis down, the forensic analyst Lisa had been working tirelessly in the background. Her tenacity had often been the linchpin in their past cases. This time she focused on the grainy footage from the Formula One weekend, searching for anything that might have been overlooked. As she scanned the footage frame by frame, something caught her eye, a reflection in the hotel lobby's glass doors. It was barely perceptible, a mere glimmer, but it hinted at something more. She enhanced the image, her heart racing with each adjustment. There, in the reflection, a distinctive bracelet on Emily's wrist, a custom piece given to her by her husband, unique and unmistakable. This discovery was a revelation. It placed Emily in the hotel lobby with Ellis, corroborating the witness's account. But it still wasn't enough to secure a conviction. They needed more. Jameson's phone buzzed, jolting him from his thoughts. It was a call from the lab. He listened intently, a mix of disbelief and hope washing over him. The tech team had managed to extract partial DNA from the scene, overlooked in the initial investigation, but now cross-referenced with new technology. The results were conclusive. A match with Ellis's DNA. It was the breakthrough they needed, the hard science that would anchor their case. As the team absorbed the news, a palpable shift occurred. Where there was once doubt, now there was determination. They could see the finish line, and it was closer than ever before. Jameson rallied the team, their strategy clear. They would confront Ellis with everything they had, hoping the weight of the evidence would tip the scales. But there was still the question of his response. Would he crumble under the pressure, or would he twist the narrative once more? As they moved out, ready to make their decisive approach, the clock continued its relentless march. The truth was nearer than it had ever been, but the final act was still unwritten. Would justice finally prevail, or would Ellis find a way to escape their grasp once again? The answers awaited, just beyond the horizon, as the story hurtled toward its climax. The team gathered in the dimly lit conference room, a palpable tension hanging in the air as Jameson laid out the plan. The evidence was solid, but they knew Ellis was a master of manipulation. They needed more than just science. They needed a psychological edge. Jameson spoke in a low, steady voice. We're going to approach this from two angles. While the DNA evidence is our backbone, we need to reinforce it with motive and opportunity. We have to make him see that his web of lies is unraveling. The team nodded in agreement, each member aware of their role in this crucial confrontation. They had been working tirelessly, piecing together Emily's last known movements, tracing every step she took during that fateful weekend. The reflection in the glass doors was the first crack in Ellis's story, and now they had the DNA match, tangible proof of his presence at the scene. But Jameson knew they couldn't rely solely on hard evidence. They needed to challenge Ellis's narrative, unravel his alibi thread by thread until there was nothing left to hide behind. As the team dispersed to prepare, Jameson received another call, this time from a forensic accountant who had been quietly examining Ellis's financials. The accountant's voice was excited, tinged with urgency. "I found something," she said. Ellis made a significant transfer to an offshore account just days before Emily disappeared. It was a large sum, enough to raise red flags. Jameson's mind raced. A financial motive. This was the missing piece that could help them understand why Ellis might have wanted Emily out of the picture. Was it a payoff? A desperate move to cover up a larger scheme? The implications were staggering, and they added another layer to the case against Ellis. The team reconvened, energized by the new development. They decided to use the financial evidence as leverage, a psychological tactic to catch Ellis off guard. If they could rattle him, make him stumble, they might just get the confession they needed. As they drove to confront Ellis, the cityscape blurred outside the car windows, the weight of what lay ahead pressing down on them. Jameson reviewed their strategy one last time, his thoughts briefly drifting to Emily's family. They had waited so long for answers, for justice, and now it was within reach. Arriving at Ellis's opulent penthouse, the team moved with quiet determination. Jameson knocked, his heart pounding in his chest. The door swung open, and there stood Ellis, his expression a practiced mask of calm. Jameson spoke first, his voice unwavering. "We need to talk, Ellis. We have new evidence that changes everything." Ellis's eyes flickered, a hint of uncertainty breaking through his composed facade. As they stepped inside, the tension was electric, the air thick with anticipation. This was the moment they had been working toward, the culmination of years of painstaking investigation. As the conversation began, the team laid out the evidence piece by piece, each revelation a step closer to the truth. Ellis listened, his demeanor shifting subtly with each new fact, the cracks in his confidence widening. Finally, Jameson delivered the financial bombshell, the offshore account, the transfer. Ellis's composure wavered, his eyes narrowing as he processed the information. This was the moment of truth, the turning point in their pursuit of justice. Would Ellis finally unravel under the pressure, or would he find a way to twist the narrative one last time? The room was silent, the tension nearly unbearable as they awaited his response. The answers were moments away, poised to change everything. Ellis's voice was measured, almost rehearsed as he began to speak. "You have nothing but circumstantial evidence and conjecture," he said, attempting to maintain his veneer of control. But his eyes told a different story, darting nervously as if searching for an escape. Jameson leaned in, his voice low but firm. "Ellis, we know about the offshore account, the transfers that coincide with Emily's disappearance, and we know about the property you purchased under an alias shortly after she vanished." A flicker of panic crossed Ellis's face, quickly replaced by a defiant smirk. "You're grasping at straws, Detective. This is all circumstantial." Jameson held his gaze, unwavering. "Maybe," he conceded, "but circumstantial evidence can be powerful, especially when it points to a motive. You needed Emily out of the way. She was the key to controlling her husband's assets, wasn't she?" Silence hung in the air, the weight of Jameson's words pressing down on Ellis. The team watched closely, sensing the shift in dynamics. The facade was cracking, and Ellis knew it. Ellis's voice wavered slightly. "You don't understand." "Then help us understand, Ellis," Jameson urged, his tone shifting to one of empathy. "This is your chance to set the record straight. Tell us what happened." For a moment, Ellis seemed to consider it, the conflicting emotions playing out across his face. But then, as if a switch had flipped, he steeled himself. "I have nothing more to say without my lawyer." Jameson nodded, expecting this turn. "That's your right," he said, standing. "But know this, Ellis. We're not going away. This isn't over." As the team left the penthouse, the tension was palpable. They had rattled him, exposed the cracks in his armor, but it wasn't enough. Not yet. Back at the precinct, they regrouped, their resolve unshaken. "We need more," Jameson stated. "Something concrete that ties him directly to Emily's disappearance." It was then that one of the junior investigators spoke up, her voice tentative but determined. "What about the church?" The room fell silent, the words hanging heavy in the air. Of course. Ellis was a respected elder in the community, his public persona one of benevolence and integrity. But what if that was just a cover? Jameson nodded, the pieces beginning to align. "We need to dig deeper into his connections there. If he's hiding something, that's where we'll find it." As the team dispersed, the urgency of their task renewed, Jameson felt a swell of hope. They were close, so close to unraveling the truth. And this time, there would be no escape for Ellis. Ellis, the trusted neighbor, the man who stood in plain sight all these years, was finally on the brink of exposure. The city he once navigated with ease now closed in around him, the walls of his deception crumbling. The team worked tirelessly, delving into Ellis's life, his relationships, his secrets. And as they uncovered the layers of his double life, the shocking truth began to emerge. Ellis was not just a manipulator, he was a predator, hiding in plain sight, using his charm and influence to mask his darker inclinations. Armed with this new understanding, Jameson felt the pieces click into place. They had what they needed, the final puzzle piece that would bring Ellis to justice. The next day, as dawn broke over the city, the team prepared for their final move. With warrants in hand, they set out, ready to confront Ellis one last time. The truth was within reach, and soon justice would be served. The morning air was crisp as the team assembled outside Ellis's stately home, the anticipation thick in the air. The once idyllic neighborhood now seemed to hold its breath, the morning sun casting long shadows across the manicured lawns. Jameson took a deep breath, nodding to his team as they moved forward, a synchronized unit poised to dismantle the facade Ellis had so carefully constructed. The knock on the door was firm, echoing through the quiet streets. Moments later, Ellis appeared, his face a picture of composed surprise. But beneath the veneer there was a flicker of something else, fear. The warrant was presented, and for a moment, time seemed to stand still. Then the mask slipped, and Ellis's expression hardened, the realization dawning that his charade was over. Inside the interrogation room, the atmosphere was tense, charged with years of unanswered questions and suppressed truths. Ellis sat at the table, his demeanor still attempting to convey an air of innocence. But Jameson knew better now. The evidence they had gathered was irrefutable, and it was time to confront Ellis with the truth. "How you've been living a lie, Ellis," Jameson began, his voice steady and unwavering. "The community trusted you, and you betrayed that trust in the most horrific way. It's over." Ellis's silence was deafening, but his eyes betrayed him, darting nervously. Jameson continued, laying out the connections they'd uncovered, the church, the secret meetings, the financial discrepancies, all pointing to a man who had exploited his position and the people around him. Finally, Ellis spoke, his voice a low rasp. "You have no idea what you're talking about." But Jameson pressed on, each word a hammer striking at the walls Ellis had built around himself. "You can't hide anymore. We know about the surveillance footage, the late-night visits to the church. We know about Emily." At the mention of Emily's name, something in Ellis shifted. His bravado crumbled, and for the first time, there was a crack in his composure. His confession began haltingly, as if each word was being dragged from him against his will. He spoke of obsession, of feeling trapped, of a darkness that had consumed him. He had seen Emily as a beacon, someone who could understand him, but when she rejected him, he had panicked, leading to that fateful night. The room was silent, the weight of his words hanging heavy in the air. It was a chilling reminder of the man he had hidden behind the mask of respectability. The trial that followed was swift, the evidence overwhelming. Ellis was sentenced to life without parole, a final resolution that offered a measure of closure to Emily's grieving family. The community, once vibrant and trusting, was left to grapple with the knowledge that one of their own had harbored such darkness. In the aftermath, the city slowly began to heal. Emily's family, though forever marked by their loss, found solace in the truth and in the justice that had finally been served. They established a foundation in her name, dedicated to supporting other families who had suffered similar tragedies, turning their pain into a beacon of hope for others. As the years passed, the memory of Emily lingered, a reminder of the resilience of the human spirit. Her story became a testament to the power of perseverance and the unyielding pursuit of justice. And so as the sun set over the city, casting its golden light across the rooftops, it was clear that while Emily was gone, she would never be forgotten. Her legacy lived on, a lasting tribute to the strength found in truth and the enduring impact of love and remembrance.